Hello, Namaste, this is 𝐕𝐧𝐝 here once again and welcome back to my channel 𝐕𝐧𝐝 Stock Analyst. So in today's video, I'm talking about India-Canada political dispute and whatever the bickering, what you call, the problem between India and Canada, and what are the ramifications of this problem long term on the economy and overall, not only political, geopolitics and everything. And request you, because I will be covering many of the information and aspects which you will not find in most of the places. You may not have heard about it. So you please watch till the end and don't skip in between. So as you know, this in last 1 week, this India-Canada dispute started with the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau accusing India of being a accomplice, or India government agencies felicitated for or conspired to kill one of the Khalistani terrorists who happens to be a Canadian citizen. So let me give you some little background about what is this Canada. As you know, then in last 100 years, at least before independence of Indian independence, many of this Punjabi Sikhs used to migrate to Canada, and till now Canada is the largest Sikh population after India. So you can say the second largest Punjabi Sikh population after India lives in Canada, and they are citizens, and they play a very kind of a economic as well as political role in Canada. They are about 2.5% of the Canadian population, but play a major political role also. So their support, or what bank becomes important. Another aspect about Punjabi Sikhs and Canada and Ukraine and Canada, which may not be knowing very many people, is that after Ukrainian population, after Ukraine and Russia, Canada hosts the third largest Ukrainian population in the world. So around 1.5 million people of Ukrainian origin are living in Canada. They are Canadian citizens. So now you understand these Sikhs and Ukrainians and Canada. So Canada is that way hosting these two big population, ethnic population, what you call, and that is where the connection of Canada also comes. So, it's up to you to judge where Canada always sits, or where Canada ends up being on the wrong side of history by supporting the wrong causes. So in this particular dispute is about, they are accusing India of being a part of that conspiracy, of the part of the killing of Sikh Khalistani terrorist 𝐕𝐧𝐝. He was killed, I think, 1 or 2 months before. And now Canada is accusing Indian government of being a conspiracy partner into killing of this thing. And we have a very long history of Canada being an accomplice or nurturing this Khalistani terrorist. You look at the 1981 bombing of Air India Kanishk flight, where 330 some people had died. Most of them Canadians and Indians, 130 was Indians. But still, Canada didn't support the extradition of who was the mastermind of that killer. That bombing mastermind was Canadian Sikh. Basically, it's a terrorist, Khalistani terrorist. Canada never extradited that to India. Even now also, India has raised about 42 Khalistani terrorists, or the convicts of India government, which India says that they are international and against the interest of India, living in Canada as Canadian citizens. But Canada doesn't look into this. Canada is always on the wrong side of history. You will be surprised to know that Canada, by this, India has frozen. India also took a very strong step of cancelling all the visa. So now no more visa services, at least for the time being. There is no Canadians can get visa for India. So Indian Council in Indian Embassy in Canada has stopped providing visa services. So what is the implication of that? I mean, it's such a strong step. And also Indian government has told Canadian government to not close down, but to water down the number of people working in the Canadian Embassy in India, in equivalent to the Indian people working in the Indian Embassy in Canada. Means to come to parity. Like here, it was disproportionately high number of diplomats, Canadian diplomats working in Canadian Embassy in India. So India wants that it should reduce. So this is all a very serious kind of steps which Indian government has taken. Don't take it like that it will go away. No, this is for a long haul. And what it is going to do bad for, I mean, what you can say that economically and geopolitically is that Canada generally has around 800,000 students. 40% of the students are Indians, more than 40 to 50%, you can say 40%. And on an average, even $30,000 per student is paying to the Canadian University for the studies. You can imagine $9 to $10 billion of that big money being provided by the Indian students to Canadian economy. And then apart from that education, that living and working there and contributing to the Canadian economy. It's going to be a big problem for the Canadian economy, nothing to do with the India. Okay, now there is a caution is that Indian students should not look at Canada for the education. They should seriously start looking at any other destination but not Canada, because the crisis which has started now is not going to end very soon, and it's going to linger for a long period of time. And also it will have a geopolitical, not only economic aspects also, because once you have suspended the business visa and all kinds of visa services, so how any businessman, suppose in Canadian businessman wants to come and try to negotiate for some investment or doing some business or buying from India, how that will, so that definitely that is going to be hampered. Okay, Canada has not stopped any issuing any visa to Indians, so Indians can keep on traveling, but still there is a lot of danger in Canada for the Indians particularly. The way this Justin Trudeau government is giving free rein to this Khalistani terrorists, because he is totally playing that domestic vote bank politics, and on that vote bank he is depending on, his government is depending on, that is why he is pandering to this Khalistani agenda. And his father was also doing the same. That is what. So this is not a one time or a, suddenly it has happened. Canada has a history of siding with the wrong and criminals, like Khalistani terrorists, like in Ukraine population. So what now Canada is doing also, why it's so much, he's the biggest supporter of the Ukraine in terms of arms supply and everything apart from USA. It's because Ukrainian population is the biggest after Ukraine and Russia in Canada. So you can understand what kind of people live or go to Canada. Another is that Canada, it's just a lackey of USA, United States of America. And you are not, and Canada finds the seat at the big table in the world politics or the geopolitics or economy, that G7, G20, is just because of US's shelter. It's a shelter economy of US. It's a shelter country of US. It's no independent country. So you expecting something that Canada is independently economically, it is totally, it's a wrong. In fact, I would go to the extent of saying that even UK and Australia is also part of US's extended political regime. Means they are just country for the sake of saying independent country, but you look at Rishi Sunak, he is not an elected Prime Minister. He is not won any constituency or on any political. He is a political appointee. And that everything, all this politics or the geopolitics behind the scenes is controlled by, say, monarchy in England, that is the king, and ultimately by the USA. So to tell that Canada is recently only this kind of relationship with India has happened. No, it has been a policy of anti-India always from its time immemorial and supporting Khalistani terrorists. So what is the economics? As we told, economics is mainly into mines and minerals and some kind of basically it is natural resources and fertilizer and all these things supplying to India. So that kind of business will be very much deeply impacted. And from Indian side of, if somebody or some government agency is telling that business will not be affected, I don't agree. I beg to differ that businesses will be affected. India exports majorly this engineering, pharmaceutical, textile, chemical, this kind of goods are exported from India. So definitely over a period of time when you lose that trust, when the government of each other, they take anti-positions against each other and the policy-wise, it is not easy to do business. So definitely that business is also going to be affected and it's going to. So take that way. And the same way the student business, it's one of the biggest business in Canada which Indian students contribute. That is also going to come down significantly. And third is that Canada's economy, it looks like big economy because it's a huge country with hardly any population. What is the population of Canada? It's around 3.39 million people. Means around 40 million people only. Okay. And its economy is around, GDP is around $2 trillion. So it depends a lot on this immigrant students and immigrant population. That's why Canada is a favorite destination of all the immigrants who want to migrate from their country to Canada. But living in Canada, it's not so. If whatever people or one people can say that it's a very developed and all this country, but it's very expensive. I'll give you one aspect of that expensive. How expensive is that? You look at price to rent index. What is price to rent index? Price to rent index is the home price, average home price is any apartment price in any city of Canada to the average rent a person pays for living into that. It is one of the highest in the world in Canada. It's more than 145, that price to rent index. And comparatively, if you look at the salaries or the average, job wages you get, it is much, much less. So what you do is that so much of immigrants come to every year to Canada in form of students and all this other professional immigrants. They find it very hard to sustain there as a quality of life because the apartments are very difficult to find and very costly. Because of that number of construction is not happening at that pace the way the Canada is bringing the immigrants and the students from outside. And that is why the price keeps on going. That is, price to rent is a very high. So people may be lured by, say, the Canada is calling, Canada is giving very easily the citizenship and the permanent residency permit. But that is a country which I would believe that now they have started this kind of conflict with India. They are not going to sustain the economy very well because India is a $3+ trillion economy, third or the fourth largest economy, and Canada is nowhere. It's only because of the blessings of USA. It has no weight in militarily, geopolitically, politically or economically in the world. And it's not only the question of this government, but if you look at the Canada's history, because government is selected or elected by the people, right? So you have Ukrainians, you have this Khalistani, mostly Sikhs, who support this kind of policy. So that's why the domestic policy will always be shaped by the support of these two populations. And these two populations can easily manipulate any government, and all the governments in the future also, whichever government comes, they are dependent on this vote bank politics of Sikh, Khalistani Sikhs and Ukrainians. That is the reason I don't see in near term or in the medium term also the relationship between India and Canada is going to improve. It is going to only worsen because the way Justin Trudeau is insisting without any proof, without anything, just to hearsay, to pander to his Sikh community of Sikh politics, he has jeopardized. And This is the reason India also has to look for this fertilizer or timber. That is the maximum exports from Canada to India is into woods, timber, forest products, and fertilizer, agricultural. Okay, mines and minerals, as I told you, and coal, coking coal. So this definitely you can, you can buy from Russia, Australia, there are so many other sources. So it is Canada which is going to suffer a lot economically. And the advice is that more and more Sikh population is going there, and they are all mostly radicalized, Khalistanis. And there is a part of Canada which is called Quebec. You know, Canada is into 10 provinces. So Quebec is on the southeast province, around 25-30%. It's a French-speaking area. And they, since more than 50-60 years, they also fight for their own referendum that they want to separate from the Canada. They want to have their own French, different, separate country from Canada. So now this is my prediction is that you are going to see in future the Canada breaking up on that regional or the language and the ethnic basis. So because it is Canada has only started Frankenstein monster in the form of Sikh Khalistani terrorists. What happened to Taliban? It was nurtured by America, right? And what happened ultimately? America suffered, and all those people who had created. And now Pakistan was also one of that creation, father, you can say, of Taliban. And now they are only suffering on daily basis. The same thing, this Khalistani creation was nurtured by this Trudeau and his father, and generally most of this Canadian political party, they are going to suffer. So this is what I wanted to share, that Canada is gone. This is what you are not going to see anything in near future. It is going to worsen only, because that is the path they have chosen. And India is not going to suffer anything from that. Only the caution or warning to all the students is that stop looking at, migrating out of India for studies. You try to study. There are a lot of other options available in India as well as in other countries. Stop going to, countries like Canada, Ukraine, Armenia. Even you will be surprised. There are so many Indian students going to Armenia. I mean, more poorer and more smaller country than you, and you are going to study there. How it is going to value add to your education, and how you are going to get the opportunities after studying those kind of countries. So in Kazakhstan also, student goes, for what they go, I never understand, fail to understand. So there is no future for this kind of migration. You should look at India is the growing behemoth. You should look at that way. So I wanted to share my thoughts, and for any particular investment advice, you please contact me. My email details are given in the description box down below. And for update on the economic and the stock market and in generally geopolitical ideas, you can join my Telegram channel also, 𝐕𝐧𝐝 Stock Analyst. And for the articles, you can visit my website www.steelanalyst.com, and investment consultancy on a chargeable basis. So you can send me request and I can then we discuss. That's it from my side. Ciao from 𝐕𝐧𝐝 from Moscow.